Hi, I wanted to talk about some historical perfumes. I was recently in one of the Latvian diplomats, ex-historical diplomats museums, Jānis Akurāters in Riga, and I wanted to talk about some perfumes as actually these were bought by him when he was abroad for his family members, some ladies in his family, and that actually reminded me that I would want to talk about one of these perfumes from the standpoint of historical perfume creation value. This particular scent I haven't tried myself, but I know that one of my not so to say idols, but definitely one of the people that is more or less in the celebrity status that I admire is the burlesque dancer Dita Von Teese, and she in one of her interviews talked about this particular scent, which is Quelques Fleurs by Houbigant, and this is a fragrance that she said that she used to wear back in the day before she collaborated with one of her perfumer friends, as she has many designer, shoemaker, perfumer friends, and created her own original scent. But it used to be her signature scent. It definitely is on a wish list to try out, but I wanted to talk more about the perfume notes and history behind it, as it is more or less a fun topic. And the Quelques Fleur is a fragrance with main accords of white floral, powdery, green, citrus, fresh, sweet, woody, aromatic, and animalic. But this is a true vintage scent and created or launched it in the year 1913, so in the beginning of the 20th century. So this particular scent, it is of course a French perfumer house fragrance, and it is a floral fragrance for women. So of course, like many vintage perfumes such as Chanel and Guerlain, typically those days the unisex scents weren't as universal as universally available and universally created. Then typically you would have gender differences for perfumes, unless they were just simple scents for clothes or some other purposes. And of course nowadays with niche perfume rise, you have a lot of unisex scents, but those days, for instance, Guerlain and Chanel created specific scents that were more or less targeted for one gender or the other. So this is ladies scent, and the perfumer behind this is the Robert Vienne, and the top notes are green notes, orange blossom, tarragon, bergamot, citrus, and lemon, so multiple different citrus notes, and middle notes of lilac, jasmine, lily of the valley, carnation, rose, tuberose, ylang ylang, violet, heliotrope, iris, and orris root, as well as orchid. And base notes of oak moss, honey, civet, musk, sandalwood, amber, vanilla, and tonka bean. The base notes are actually very true and style that you will see in the later on vintage scents, for example in 1980s, rather than a scent that you would normally see in the beginning of 20th century, so in 1900s, early 1900s, especially in 1930, where this particular fragrance was created. But so civet note itself was more or less popular, and oak moss as well as amber and sandalwood combination with warmer notes was very trendy in the mid-90s and also mid-80s. And various, for instance, the use of carnation, lily of the valley, tuberose, ylang ylang, violet, heliotrope notes, all of these floral notes, firstly, are very typical for French perfumers. So for Italian perfumers, you would see a lot more citruses. For warmer climate and some Arabic perfume influences, as Italy, parts of Italy were Arab inhabited parts for some time, but at the same time, when speaking of the fragrance creation and also vintage perfumes, the notes of carnation, orris root were also something trendy also in 80s and 90s. So this particular scent is very a unique scent for the beginning of 20th century perfumes. And also the combination of lily of the valley, lilac, ylang ylang is also something that was popular in not early but late 40s since so 1940s after the World War II, and also fragrances that were created in 1950s. For example, late 1940s, early 50s, Air de Toms perfume, and of course in these particular fragrances, fragrance notes in early 1950s fragrances, you would see ylang violet, heliotrope, lilac, jasmine, and some lily of the valley perfume notes. But the green notes, orange blossom, tarragon, these along with other aromatics are fragrance notes that were very popular in the 1970s, but overall, so this combination itself is pretty unusual. You have a lot of different various perfume notes, some that weren't necessarily popular at that time, a lot of animalics, and some true to the core florals, but still this perfume more or less was very early for that time, style-wise, as it is more reminiscent of actually many decades later, so 1980s, 70s fragrances rather than fragrance that would be classical for the beginning of 20th century. And overall, talking about this particular perfume, it is one of the perfumes that you can still obtain and purchase these days. So it is considered a white floral, so creamy lilac scent with a drop of jasmine. But it is one of the very few scents that both was very popular when it was created, and it is still produced and manufactured these days, and it is still very popular and considered as a timeless classic. For example, the same way as Guerlain scents, House of Guerlain, also some Chanel scents that were the vintage fragrances that are still manufactured, for example Chanel number 5. And this also means that if you want a true vintage scent, a true scent that would be both classical but still will have some level of French perfumery style and some elegance to them, and you don't mind animalic notes and fragrances, then it could potentially be your fragrance. And at the same time, you can purchase this fragrance online in many places. The price is pretty hefty for the 100 ml bottle, but you can still buy some decants, and also they have the Houbigant perfume store online, and so you can order it online as well from them directly. And it starts from 80 euros for a smaller decant size, so it's still quite decent price-wise if you want a smaller size. Just try to sample it. And if you like vintage perfumes, if you like vintage clothing style, this might actually pair very well with it. So that's all about mini perfume history. I do want to try this particular scent, but now I just wanted to talk about it as I was inspired both by listening to burlesque dancer Dita Von Teese perfume interviews, perfume related interviews, as she loves collecting vintage items, jewelry, clothing, and also perfumes. And this is one of the perfumes that is still manufactured these days and that you can still acquire. So that's all for today, and I will review also next the Guerlain Mitsuko and just talk about some history behind it as well, as this was another fragrance that I actually saw in Latvian Diplomat, historical diplomat, and also more or less celebrity at the time, Jānis Akurāters museum, and that also back in the day, 1930s, actually brought this fragrance for his family members, some ladies in his family, both the Guerlain Mitsuko and Quelques Fleurs, and thus it is an interesting scent when looking at the historical connections both abroad and also in this country, as it used to be a French or Parisian classic, and of course French perfumes were very famous throughout the whole world, not just today but also those days. So that's all.